I wonder if this is how you have to start a SAAB fighter jet. Ignition key between the seats and the mobilizer, put in reverse. Seems rather inconvenient. Welcome back to Living with a Classic. We're out in the beater $500 SAAB. And I realized a couple days ago when I was out driving that, it's been a year since I got this car. And it's been actually more. It's been 13 months close to. I checked, it was like the 10th of April, something like that, when I picked this thing up. So, yeah, a year with this car. So before we talk a little bit about what's happened, it's not one of the major cars on the channel, but you guys said you want to continue follow along what happens with it, and I thought a year would be a good update. Quick backstory on why we got the car. So before we got the Range Rover, which is my wife's car, we've always had various different Volvo station wagons. I've had one, my wife's had a couple, and we've had some other cars in between. But we always had a Volvo station wagon to be able to tow a horse trailer. And for those of you living in the States, horse trailers and towing is very different than Europe. Everything is quite lightweight and aluminum and fiberglass and things, so you don't need a very big car for towing here. And SAABs have always kind of been famous for their towing capacity, but we'll get to that later. But we picked up the Range Rover and it did not have a tow attachment on it, and I checked, no problem fitting one of those. However, you need a new driver's license. Usually not a problem, you need a special license to drive such a heavy vehicle when you want to tow with it, because the Range Rover is quite heavy. Usually not a problem at all. However, that was in the middle of the pandemic, which means that everyone decided that, I'm going to get a motorcycle license, or I'm going to get a driver's license, or I'm going to do this and that. So it was more than a 6-month wait to get one of those licenses. And, we needed a car to be able to tow with. We don't really ever go anywhere with the horses, but you want to be able to, and especially in an emergency situation, if a horse is ill, you need to be able to use the horse trailer that we have. So I went on Facebook Marketplace and I decided that, if I can find a car for $500 or less, I think I set my budget like $600, the equivalent in our currency here, with a tow bar and that it has MOT, then that will be worth it. So I went around looking and I found this thing, and it was close to the house. That was also one thing. I wanted to be close to my house because of COVID and all of that. And I found this. Went and had a look at it, and it was fine for what I needed. I mean, definitely not perfect. Definitely a little bit more rusty than advertised. But I haggled with him a little bit, got it down to about $500, and brought it home. And here we are. So now it's 1 year later, and I haven't actually driven as much as, I didn't think that we'd use this thing as much, but we haven't actually used it that much at all. However, it has definitely paid for itself those times we've used it. We've been to the vet emergency with a horse with it once, so that has just paid for it. We have also, picked up some used furniture with it. I have used it several times during the winter when I needed to go somewhere with the train or an airplane, and I wanted to leave a car at the airport or at the train station, and this is the perfect car for that, because if someone were to take it, it would not be the complete end of the world. It would just be a hassle having to take a cab home instead. But it's not like parking one of the old Jags somewhere. And so like I said, about 3,000 kilometers, which isn't much, but I've also been working from home, not commuting and all of that, so nothing really much has been done with it. There was a plan that I was supposed to be back at the office in January, and I thought, I'll drive this car during the worst of the winter, but I ended up not going back to the office, so that didn't happen as well. But we're about to head up here to one of my favorite spots. It's going to be pretty, I think, now when the trees are starting to bloom, and then I'll show you what the outside looks like. Nothing's really changed, and we'll go through what this year has cost in owning this car and if I think it's been worth it or not. All right, we're once again over at my favorite spot. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know it's not too far from my house, and I just love the way the trees, you know, just come up and cover this, and we're starting to get leaves on here again. It's a great place to film cars as well because you always get nice even light here. So let's do a quick walk around the car and see what has changed. I don't think that much has changed, but I actually haven't looked at this thing that closely in a long time. And then we'll see what it has cost to keep this for a year. So it is a regular SAAB 900. So before they made the 9.3 and you know the new body style of the 900, and it is a 1996. It's an S and non-turbo 4-cylinder engine, but really not bad. Quite torquey, and I've been pretty impressed with it, to be honest. And under there, haven't really done anything except replace one part that I don't think I've told you guys about, but we'll get to that in a little bit. The only thing that's really happened to the car is, well, I mean, it's continued to rot. It is rusting like all SAABs. However, like most SAABs, it's just cosmetic. Underneath, this thing is really solid, which is weird. So all the suspension mountings, the sills, the floors, and everything are really solid. It's just the bottom of the doors are definitely going. Not pretty at all. And around here, it's going as well. But otherwise, it really isn't that bad, except all the clear coat has gone. So I mean, it's not a pretty thing. It's not a car that you would polish up or anything. I washed it once, but that's about it. So yeah, this has gotten a little bit worse here. So this is something I may need to actually address, not structurally, but more, I think it might be like a sharp object on the MOT. So I may just have to smooth that over, make it look a little bit better. These wheels I picked up last year because the summer tires that were on the car were dry rotted, and I found these at a local friend's. He actually had a SAAB shop that he shut down, but he had these, and pretty decent tires, pretty okay wheels, and I paid about $50 or so for those, so really not bad at all. But otherwise, not much has changed. Under here, we still have that 2-liter engine. Not really sure about the horsepower, but it's not much. I think it's like 126, 127 horsepower, something like that. And it hasn't really missed a beat. Hasn't used any oil. I actually haven't serviced it. I feel really guilty about that, but it hasn't driven that much. So if the car does stick around now for a bit, it is going to get a service. You know, we'll do just basic stuff, oil, plugs, all of that. Because I don't know how, the oil I know is about a year old because it was freshly serviced when I got it, but I don't know anything about plugs and all of that. So may just do that. Otherwise, hasn't used any oil, hasn't used any coolant. Everything else has been working fine. I have replaced 2 parts on the car. One was there when I got it, but I didn't really notice it when I looked it around. Was the exhaust was just hanging on really by a thread. It was starting to rot in the middle. So I replaced part of the exhaust. That wasn't too bad. It was around 120 bucks, something like that. And I replaced that. The exhaust has been great after that. The other thing is I lent the car out to a family member who just needed a car, and I don't know if they forgot what I told them or if I just did not really tell them about it, but it has a sticky ignition switch. It sticks in the start position, so you have to sometimes manually move it back to on, or the starter will keep running. So the starter kept running, burnt itself out, and I had to come pick them up. The car stopped on the side of the road because it just actually ran out of battery. And yeah, but everything else was fine. I replaced the starter and it worked. Battery charged up, no issue like that. So that was sort of the 2 mechanical things. The other was an electrical thing, which if you remember, I replaced the box that sits under here. I think it's called the ICE, and it controls a lot of things. among other things, the indicators. So that thing has small electrical fire in it, and I replaced that, and otherwise this thing has worked as it should. So we're just doing some really quick mental math there. Let's say 120 for the exhaust. I think I paid about 20 bucks for that electric box, or let's call it 30 to make that 150. Paid about 50 for the tires, so that's 200. The alternator was, the starter was, I believe, 130. So whether we're at 330 and plus the purchase of the car, so we're like $830. And I still have the whole car. It's still, it passed inspection. Oh, I actually forgot one thing. It was the rear brakes. They were a little bad. I did those, but those were really cheap. Let's add another 50 bucks to that. So 880, so let's say sub $900. And this thing has gotten me going for a whole year. I mean, it's still worth something. It's probably still worth about the 500 bucks I pay for it, because I think anyone's going to pay that for a car that starts, stops, has MOT and works. At least I would, or even if it's just 400. I mean, I felt like I haven't really lost that much owning this thing. Because if you were to have a car payment or something, that's just a couple months of having it, and then all you're doing is just paying interest. And now I own the thing, and it works, and it does what it should. You can fold down the seats. It's quite roomy. You can fit a lot of stuff into it. And it is really liberating having a car that you don't have to care about that much. Like, I don't have to wash it if I don't want to. I wouldn't actually run this thing through a car wash, not because I'm afraid of scratches, it's just because I'm afraid of the rust falling off. But I mean, I don't need to wash it. I technically probably don't need to do that much service work on it, especially, oil and plugs and things like that. It doesn't really need that much. It's a very simple engine, and that's about it. It has cheap tire size, a 15-inch size, so you can get really easily. Parts, at least where I live, are really cheap for Saabs, because it's sort of like having a Ford or a Chevy in the States, having a Saab here in Sweden. So what do you guys think? Do you think it's something I should keep for a little while here on the channel? I'm gonna fire up the fighter jet here. So, is this a keeper or not? Well, it's definitely not, a forever car like some of my Jags are. However, I have looked at replacing it, and if I want to replace it with something, it would be a wagon, because a wagon would be cool. I love wagons, and also a little bit more space. So if I were to replace it, it would probably be with a wagon. It would probably be a Volvo wagon, because Saab wagons seem to rust even more than this thing. And if I were to get an interesting Volvo wagon, because I've already had a couple of V70s, I'd probably get an older Volvo wagon, like 940 or something. Also because maybe having a car that's tax exempt would be pretty good as an extra breather vehicle. But I mean, they're kind of valuable, so that would be maybe double what I have into this thing. And would I really need that? Not really. So I think this thing is staying as long as it works. If anything major happens that's going to cost too much, I think I'll set like a cost limit at $200 or $300, something like that. If it's going to be more than that, then it's got to go. It will just sort of be like playing Bangernomics. It will stay around as long as it makes financial sense. And I do actually enjoy driving it. It doesn't look very pretty, but it drives very, very well. It's really solid. The guys at the MOT said this thing may not look pretty, but it's extremely solid underneath. Suspension and everything, like there's no play and everything. Because of the high mileage, it's 334,000 kilometers. Things have been replaced because people have driven this car, so everything is actually kind of fresh. So that's the odd thing. But yes, the Saab will stay on the channel for a while. Let me know if you still want some updates every now and then. Now during summer, it's not doing much more than just doing the occasional run to the parts store for lumber and things, towing some trailers, and that's about it. But let me know if you want to see if it ends up passing the next MOT, if you want to see sort of the whole full service of the car and all of that, if that's something you want to see in a video here on the channel. Anyways, I'm gonna head back home now. Got some other things to do. Got some tinkering to do in the workshop. So working on kind of a big thing over there. So it will take a while to get that video out, but we got other videos coming out in the meantime. Anyways, if you like this video, please give a thumbs up, share it with friends. If you're not resubscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. Until next time, I'm Adam. This was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.